In Who Rules This Sausage Factory, Neil Smith writes that much meat has passed through the grinder since Karl Marx's worst-shaped comparison in 1867. And much meat has passed through since Smith's renewal. Within Capital Volume 1, Marx writes, "A schoolmaster is a productive labourer when, in addition to belabouring the heads of his scholars, he works like a horse to enrich the school proprietor. That the latter has laid out his capital in a teaching factory instead of a sausage factory does not alter the relation." Marx here is referring to school, but in recent years this description applies fittingly to the contemporary university and those within it, now in service to capital. There are two notable events that endorse this metaphor. First, the UK government's Jarrett report declared that universities are first and foremost corporate enterprises, and would henceforth operate around financial priorities as opposed to the acquisition of knowledge. As a result, market forces dictate how teaching and learning is delivered, aligning more closely with the centralised growth-led model of mass production. Second, the Bologna process outlined that higher education must proceed according to comparable benchmarks of quality, bringing all degrees in line with conventional academic subjects worldwide. Bolognification oversees an exercise in global flattening, foregoing a currency of difference in an attempt to achieve standardised similitude across the sector. In order to maintain these standards and uphold quality, the university obsesses over metrics, favouring activity which can be more easily quantified and ignoring that which cannot. In a system of units, not everything that is important is measurable, and much that is measurable is unimportant. The result of such priorities is that exercises in quality control are in effect quantity control, as methods for assessing quality always defer to the numeric, student satisfaction, retention, grades, etc. Within the standardised model, not even the consumer is exempt, and is subjected to frequent measurement at modular points throughout their degree. Assessment of quality is a brutal slice, but this crude cross-section is not a reliable index of the individual, the centre from which meaningful pedagogies are based. The intention here is to achieve parity, though what aims to create equality instead achieves the opposite, when it overlooks the inherent associated differences among individuals. It's about the consumer, but it's not really about the consumer. For the art school, the individual has always been at the centre, an essential component of a diverse and democratic community, each pursuing an individually appropriate curriculum. An idealist would prefer not to mark altogether, invoking the open and experimental spirits of the past. But we are contractually obligated to do so, and through resignation we are all complicit. Smith writes, "Yet on a daily basis we all trek into the sausage factory. Some of us are sausages, some of us put the sausage meat in skins, some of us just tend the machines, and some are the managers. All of us are in Marx's educational factory." "The Polony will resemble you," I think Tristan Tzara once said. Acknowledgement of this position is a passive first step. Recognising that action is indeed possible would be an appropriate and active second step. Nadine Kalin writes, "Ultimately, critique and subversion of educational structures need to occur from both the outside in and the inside out of the institution, for artists and educators alike are in a struggle to reactivate the institution of education as a site of critique, a place worth protecting and subverting for this very reason." But what if we stick with the Saveloy and fully embrace the metaphor? By leaning into the sausage, we will not only uncover fitting methods of assessment within food production, but also existing tools within the university that can help return the individual back to the pedagogic centre. As such, we propose the Kunstwurst, or art sausage, process and product which borrows heavily from the factory, but subverts the standardised convention. Kunstwurst signifies an acknowledgement of our current situation, but doesn't just accept the status quo. It's a sausage-shaped signpost that points backwards to a better time, standing as a multiplicitous index of the possibilities currently within our reach. Kunstwurst offers a pedagogic approach that takes a holistic, longitudinal view, as opposed to a snapshot in time when the subject might or might not be ready. It's an attitude to learning that is ongoing, a Wurst without end. Looking around the sausage factory, we soon become aware of hazard analysis and critical control point, HACCP, a method for ensuring and maintaining standards within food production. On closer inspection, we discover critical control and longitudinal integration, which present themselves as intriguing stages within a metaphorical sausage-making process. Despite its clinical connotations, HACCP adopts a holistic position that is interested in an ongoing critical dialogue with all those involved within production. Critical control offers an interesting alternative to quality, or even quantity control. Qualitative and quantitative assessment points make performance-related value judgments upon output. These occur at endpoints in a process from which we are unable to return. We should never go back to a banger once lit. An unfortunate byproduct of endpoint quality control is a reluctance to invite feedback on the work in progress, instead presenting the perfected fait accompli. But a cooked sausage is irreversible, and there is a pointless utility to retrograde questions following judgment. Critical control, on the other hand, could sidestep this final evaluation, creating an ongoing opportunity to be just that, critical. This stage is never summative, always formative, carried out at regular points along the way. The question here shouldn't be, is it good, or is there enough, but can this be questioned, and questioned further still? The question is the catalyst that allows us to maintain critical possibility and keep curiosity for learning alive. I suppose this is the point. The Kunstwurst isn't a sausage that one cooks. It involves a method that sits more closely to nurturing, caring or curing. For curing is not cooking. Who knows when it's ready? Longitudinal integration is the antithesis of the slice, instead taking a holistic lengthways view along the wurst and acknowledging all the associated and interconnected components involved in its production. It's an ongoing procedure that focuses on the process as opposed to the product. In Spain and other parts of Europe, integral is an adjective attached to foodstuffs that include ingredients in their entirety, as opposed to the refined or bleached alternative. We are continually told about the benefits of roughage for keeping us regular. But what about learning? Leftovers from school teach us that mistakes take away from the mark, and we learn to reject experimental methods in case we get things wrong along the way. Longitudinal integration allows us to incorporate and reframe mistakes as key points of learning. Within Victorian times, the sausage was termed a little bag of mystery due to its dubious inclusions. As to what went in, many turned a blind eye. What might not conventionally be considered butcher's quality is deemed an accepted ingredient within the sausage. Questionable indeed, which is exactly the point. The Kunstwurst openly invites questions in order to preserve its critical potential. So how can we adopt critical control and longitudinal integration into higher education? If we look hard enough, an equivalent is already here in the form of synoptic assessment. Synoptic assessment is defined as a form of assessment which tests candidates' understanding of the connections between the different elements of a subject. The idea is to look at everything together, as opposed to an isolated sample, which is extracted and taken away for assessment. Filio Constantinou outlines that synoptic assessment can promote a holistic and coherent delivery of the curriculum, thereby having a beneficial effect on teaching and learning. But what about critical control and the ongoing reflexive conversations which sidestep summative assessment? This might take some work, but the ordinary degree could offer an opportunity to do away with classifications and then grades, modules and learning outcomes altogether. This will take concerted energies and time and will, but there is a hope of a gentle implosion if we continually prick with a fork. So what is a Kunstwurst? A curriculum, a portfolio, a document, a conversation, a journey, a question. Maybe it's all these things. It's a promise to keep in mind that there used to be a more meaningful way, and retains the hope that what has been lost is still possible within contemporary higher education. In embracing Marx's metaphor, this has enabled us to look openly at aspects of the institution that might enable us to return the individual back to the pedagogic centre. Oddly enough, there's radicalism in the regs. We can fight admin with admin and hoist bureaucracy with its own petard, if we're willing to put in the time into turning these to our advantage. For who's to say that the sausage is bad? We assure you parts of it are excellent.